second time around. He's always good for that second kill.
Yeah, that's even something actually that I'll point out, which is that if you think of a player like Ziwu, you see the highlight clips, you see the frag movie first, and you think, well, yeah, he's so skilled, one of the best players. But it was actually very early on in this Vitality career that Maniac pointed out to me basically what you're saying there, which is if you just look at the intelligence of him as a player, forget the crosshair for a second, look how he plays his clutch round situation, look how he repositions after a first kill. I mean, that's one area where actually I'll give him the edge over Simple early in his career. Simple early in his career had this raw skill like this, he was incredible, but he was also the guy where he would just brute force it, he would just push 3-4 guys and he's going to try and kill everyone, he's the Terminator. So I think at this point in time, I couldn't really hear what they were telling me there, so if they could repeat that, never mind. Whatever. I think we're probably going into the game now, are we? No, apparently not. That's what happens when people talk when you're trying to listen. So anyway, going back a second. What do you think on that angle, though? Smart player? Smartest player even, maybe? In your rookie year?
Yeah, you can see that despite having the mechanical skill that he does, he didn't just model his game after an RWS hunting player or anything like that. It's almost like he looked at some of the more passive players. Like, he might have looked at someone like World Edit or someone like Device, who don't necessarily rely on just heavy skill, but a lot of good macro decision-making in order to just have success and impact in these rounds. So, yeah, Ziwu, really smart. And rifling as well. Like, he clutched out that 1v2 against eHome, a huge round. And I mean, I don't know if every other player on Vitality would have made the same decisions that he did, even though he's so young.
Well, speaking of making difficult decisions, this one's obviously a tough choice, despite what we've seen today. Looks like so far people are edging it. A narrow one, but they're edging towards NaVi. Does the veto change that at all, Potter? Is NaVi favoured in this veto?
I think so. I think NaVi are just favored in general right now anyway. I think pound for pound right now, specifically just in these opening matches this morning, NaVi, we had each individual stepping up at one point or another. We saw the aggression coming out of Boomich. I mean, pretty much every one of these players on NaVi clutched around one time or not today. Whereas on Vitality, we mentioned it was only really Ziwu stepping up. So I got to say, it makes sense for me.
Okay, quick prediction.
I'm going to go with NaVi 2-0.
Okay, right. We're going to throw over to another unlikely pairing, which is James Bardolph and Hawker. So what do you got for me, Bardolph?
Well, I think this is pretty interesting. On paper, I think that Dust 2 could be quite coin flippy, as they alluded to on the desk. I think the nature of the map kind of goes that way. Vitality did beat NaVi at Malmo on this 16-11, but with Nuke as a decider, the last head-to-head they had, which they are 2-2 in general, but on Nuke it was a 16-6-2 NaVi, and I think they got themselves a nice warm-up, and we saw good coordination from them in the series they played earlier on. So I think that you have to favour NaVi going into this.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they looked really solid in that game against Heroic, whereas Vitality had some moments where they looked slightly shaky against eHome. It was mainly that Inferno, which came much closer than you would hope. So I feel like NaVi are favoured, but this is a game where, again, with Ziwu on the server, who knows what could happen.
Looking at the recent matches that Vitality have lost, they've lost to the likes of Fnatic, FaZe, 100 Thieves. Obviously, we saw a strong performance from NaVi versus not quite a tier 1 opponent there, but Vitality are losing to the teams of late that are more at their level. So definitely with recent form taken into consideration as well, you have to favour NaVi, in my opinion, in this particular series. Indeed, we will be starting on Dust 2. There we go, James.
Got there
Monsieur
eventually.
Shocks. Always nice to see him on a server.
I think the other point we had coming into this one for Vitality was that they hadn't played an official for a month. They hadn't played since, I think it was the Pro League sort of qualifying stage where they ended up losing out. So they probably kind of put some time in. They could have put some practice in. I don't think we really saw any massive improvement in that game against eHome, though. So we'll see if maybe that comes through in this series against better opposition.
Yeah, it's kind of weird when you excuse me, when you play an opponent that you're not so familiar with, like an EM, especially from a region like Asia where you might see some more unorthodox plays. It can make things a little weird. So in some senses, you might find more comfort versus a more familiar opponent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just got some info from production. It might be a few minutes before we start this match. But yeah, so I think they might find more comfort, even though they're probably a slight dog going into this particular matchup. Actually, since we do have eyes on Vitality at the moment, I know Apex has been putting out some interesting videos on YouTube recently of like match reviews and tips on, grenade executes on sites and so on. And Shox has in the past as well. I think like a few years ago now, but the general ideas in those videos are still relevant today. So that's something you should definitely look up in your spare time.